Hello. So today for this video, it's a really quick video, okay, and I'm just going to discuss about the recent essay question that was given in class. And you can see the question on here. If you had the power to change 3 things in your country or in the world, what would you change and why? So write a feature article for a school magazine. Now we've gone through the basics in terms of discussing what you should be looking at for conventions and content-wise. In terms of coming out with the essay, and you guys had to work in pairs. Okay, so upon looking at what you have done, I thought I'd just compile a really quick video on some important tips that I feel even up to date not many people are keeping in mind, and this could be something that makes or breaks your essay or the amount of time that you are spending on writing the essay. Okay, because a lot of people seem to find like I face a shortage of time to finish my essay and stuff, and I kind of saw why, okay, while you guys were doing your essays in class the other time. Okay, so what I'm going to cover today is just discussing the importance of the first 5 to 8 minutes for your outline, or remember your essay blueprint, that's the planning part. So if you get the planning part down right, you'll probably be just writing all the way, and you most likely, well, it will reduce the chances for, not having enough time to complete your essay. And then the second part of this video, we're going to go into the samples from students' work, okay? And pretty much I've modified a little bit. Basically, the ideas were cool, were great, and I wanted to show the samples of how the introduction and a body paragraph should look like if you're following the conventions. A lot of times, and based on what I've seen, people were working on the introduction just fine. All the conventions on the feature article was there, but when it went into a body paragraph, it sounded the same as any conventional essay. Okay, suddenly the tone disappeared. What was nice in the introduction suddenly disappeared from the body paragraph. So I'm going to show you the sample of how you can keep with that tone and voice, okay, going throughout your essay. Alright, so let's move on to the first part. Okay, so sample outlining in terms of how to brainstorm in 5 to 8 minutes. Okay, you guys are spending 20 to 30 minutes just coming up with an outline, and that's not really prudent in terms of time management. So just going back to the structure. Now I realize that I'm talking a lot about structure, and then in the end I get feedback that people were saying, it feels really narrow. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to write because I feel like I have to keep within the box, within the structure. But I'm going to show you how you keep to it. And yet, with that as your guide, you expand. So basically, now, for intro and conclusion, I put them together because whatever you design and put in the introduction, it's going to come back to you in the conclusion anyway. You're going to use those same ideas to wrap up. Alright, so remember when we say in the introduction, there are 3 aspects that you should include in any introduction for any type of writing that you do. Right? And it's divided into general definition or background context of the topic or the subject in question, followed by the current situation, okay, covering the current situation of this topic, or even, the current trend or popularity of this topic in recent years, okay, in real life, followed by the most important part, your thesis statement. Okay, so 3 very simple aspects, but how are you gonna branch off and think of ideas based on that? So, example. Alright, so in my case, when I was coming out with the outline, now keep in mind, 5 minutes, very little time, but this, how do I call it? This step-by-step is expected to help you to come up with that amount of ideas in as little time possible. So in terms of definition, that aspect for definition, I decided to define the power of change, and that's pretty much plucked out from the question itself. Okay, if you had the power to change things, what would you do? So I was just defining the power of change in terms of redefining the standards of living, because that was the first thing that came to mind. Right? So if I've touched on the definition, then the next aspect that you'd want to have in any introduction is current situation. Right? So in my case, when I was thinking about current situations, I was looking at recent examples of change, recent events of change that has happened. And if you notice, I put out 3 events here, like the power change in Malaysia against corruption. That's something that has been making headlines, okay, locally for quite a few months now. And then another example I was thinking about was this, women's voices against violence being stronger now, okay, with the hashtag #MeToo and its celeb support internationally. Of course, you should know where I got this from. Okay, we've been discussing this in the speeches all this while. So again, another event that we've done before, but it was something that immediately came to mind when I was trying to tackle this question. And of course, the last one, LGBT marriages made legal. This one also recent headlines, okay, in Australia. So that's just events that I thought about, okay, immediately. I don't have to write all 3 later on in my actual essay, but it's good to just list out what I have, okay, so that there's a choice. And later on, you'll have lots more to write about and choose rather than stopping and trying to think what to continue next, right? So that already covers the first 2 aspects in introduction. From this point on, it should be easy in terms of going into, the last aspect. That's a thesis statement anyway. Okay, the thesis statement which defines what you'll be writing about in the body paragraphs. So in my case, I was covering 2 main ideas, alright? And I decided to narrow down the topic to the changes in education, simply because I was thinking of the target audience. Okay, in feature articles and speeches, usually your target audience would have been specified in the question itself. In this case, write a feature article for your school magazine. So target audience would likely be school, okay, students, staff, people involved in education. So I decided to narrow down the changes to within the educational environment, and that included curriculum changes and compulsory CSR, that stands for corporate social responsibility, extracurricular activities. Okay, these are things that you see going on in different schools or outside different countries. I want to localize it, okay, bring it back to Malaysia, something like that. Alright, if you see, I've put in the examples, e.g. I most likely am not going to put that in my thesis statement. Okay, this is just part of the process of me outlining my thoughts. Right? So you'll see this going on later in the body paragraphs also, because that's where I pull them in. Okay, so in terms of the outlines, now body paragraphs, since especially feature article, you have so many different aspects that you can pick from. You can talk about cause and effect. You can talk about problem and solution. So in this case, I decided to focus on realistic benefits in terms of the changes, suggestion of changes, and to talk about solutions, how to realistically implement these changes. Alright, so just by me writing this out, I'm already narrowing down a little bit of what I'm going to be thinking about. Okay, so in terms of the peel, okay, we're trying to come out with the peel for the outline of my body paragraphs. So first one, curriculum change. Okay, the benefits and the reasons why. So I have all the self-esteem, confidence boost, okay, and understanding the importance of defense, not treating it as an excuse for as an excuse for violence, right? Because that's in reference to sex ed or self-defense subjects, right? Then how to implement it. So self-defense subjects being part of, existing PE, physical education subject, okay? And then having the schools, having GLCs, spearheading competitions to get everybody involved, right? So what's important is, again, notice the line of thoughts. Now, this is still part of brainstorming. Okay, so once I had that thesis statement, it was a bit easier to figure out the reasons why. And reasons why always, comes back to your target audience again. So in this case, if it's in education, this is most likely involving students. And what about introducing new things to students? These, like confidence, mental well-being, these are very common categories, okay, that you could think about when you're coming out with reasons why. So, alright, that's for the first body paragraph. Then maybe my second body paragraph in terms of implementing compulsory corporate social responsibility activities. Okay, so why? Reasons why? Because it helps this group of people To appreciate how privileged they are and helps nurture the caring side instead of the materialistic red race mentality. Right? Again, general explanation, but it helps keep my idea in perspective. So all this while, my main idea, okay, the type of change is regarding compulsory CSR, and everything I have in terms of the reasons goes back to trying to prove this idea, why this idea is legit. Okay, and then the solution part, right, again, how do you logically implement compulsory CSR in the school, in education? Right, so again, whatever I have here that I'm planning to be writing in my actual essay goes back to the main idea, right? So in this case, if you see, it looks like it's only 2 paragraphs, but when I actually start writing, I can probably write more. I'll probably be describing more, use of persuasive techniques more, and then I can probably put this into 4 paragraphs. Why in 1 paragraph, how in another paragraph. Okay, that's how I can divide it. But most importantly is that in 5 minutes, I already have this outline of what I'm going to write. And that will help me in terms of just having a continuous stream of ideas to write rather than stopping and having a writing block here and there. Okay, so that's in terms of outlining. Again, reason why I'm bringing this up, because when I saw a lot of you who are doing in pairs, 2 brains, but it took 20 or 30 minutes to come up with the outline, which is illogical when it comes to an actual exam environment. So this is what you want to train yourselves to do. Okay, we've been talking about this time and again every time we went into essays, but you really need to put this into practice. Okay, now I do understand that there are a lot who find it difficult to think of ideas themselves. It's very easy to go into the structure, but the ideas come very difficult for some people. So here's a tip, all right? And this tip you can use for any essay question, really. This is how you generate ideas, right? Now, stay with me. I know there's a lot of information here, but let's go step by step, right? So this one, the alternative brainstorming. Now, what happens is I just pull out important points like this. For this question, target audience, I know it's already there, okay? My conventions, feature article, fine. Now, main ideas. What you want to look at is, so in the first thing you want to look at the categories, okay? In order to make your main ideas distinct, as a lot of times when you explain, you may come back to the same category in 2 different paragraphs. So in order to keep those paragraphs distinct, have an area, a specialized area or specialized category in mind. Right? So in this case, now these are some of the categories that I always have in mind. No matter what kind of essay question I come across, these are the common categories that I always start working with first. Okay, things like environment, safety, social communications, technology, family. Some people give ideas like economy, okay, or financial support, or something to do with money. So notice, okay, each category focuses on a very specific aspect. So, once you have those single word categories there, then you can move on to expanding the actual idea in relation to the question. Right? Now, if you have all these categories in mind, and not just these categories that I have here, mind you, okay, you should come up with your own categories. Alright, try to think and practice listing out as many distinct categories as you can. So even if you can only remember like 8 to 10 or even just 7, okay, no matter what question you come across, at least out of that 7, you'll have 2 or 3 ideas that you can always work with. Okay, work into the question. So anyway, so next thing you want to look at. This is me adapting the categories to the question itself regarding the power to change 3 things. Right, so if let's say when I think about environment and to that question itself, all right, maybe I will think about changing governing laws, okay, to stricter control on litter. Okay, so heavy fines and then reasons why. Okay, see my train of thought? This train of thought follows, the same way as I did in the previous outline. But what's important is I had this category first, and then I was able to modify or come up with subsequent description of the main idea according to the question. So now, safety. So in terms of safety, the category of safety, and then if I want to talk about power of change, and this is what I came up with. So changing the working lifestyle to include compulsory self-defense programs. Alright, so here in this other outline, okay, I pulled out schools and workplaces, not just focusing on schools, but both schools and workplaces. This is for those who, you don't necessarily have to just focus on, you find out your target audience is students and just focusing on students. It doesn't even have to be as specific as the first outline. Okay, so the second one I wanted to show you, you can adapt it and expand that to different target audiences as well. Okay, just make sure you keep track of who you are addressing, okay, these ideas too. Okay, so in terms of the category of safety, changing working lifestyle for compulsory self-defense programs, right? And then the other category, social. When I talk about social, I'm thinking about communications, okay, interactions. What can I change about people's interactions with each other? So here, I mentioned, awarding compulsory technological devices to each new baby, right? And then in the category of technology, I have it here, I want to implement change, like compulsory reduction of the prices of smart homes or robotic technology for each working household. And then in a category of family, okay, I'm putting this really as a distinct category on its own because I'm not going to go as general as just the social communications. I'm going into everything about family here. So in terms of this, I put here, okay, maybe I want to implement change that imposes compulsory family days. People have to spend family time together. They must, or they'll get fined. Okay, or something, or ban divorces, or implementing one-child policies. So again, that's my train of thought. All right, now the next thing you want to notice is that look at what I've just read to you in terms of the main ideas. Some of the main ideas may seem logically impossible. Okay, this is the point where if you were in class with me, we'd stop and look at and see, which of these ideas here that were listed, which of these 5 are actually pretty illogical and something that you only see in movies or in a dystopian environment. Okay, can you figure that out? Alright, okay, so if you had picked it out from even before this, so number 3, number 4, number 5, if you look at it on its own, it really doesn't sound possible, okay, at this point in time, in current times, right? But that's, again, my chain of thoughts, right? And I wanted to inject a bit of fun into the ideas that I'm coming up with based on my pre-existing categories. So now, what can you do? Because whatever you come up with, even no matter how outlandish they sound, okay, you can make it coherent. Okay, you can make your arguments here coherent. And how? You'll always see this. Okay, there may be comments on some of your paragraphs where it's like logically there's no logic in, no common sense in some of your evidence or very weak evidence. Now, how do you make that clearer? Alright, if you look at the reasons that I've put here, okay, notice that these reasons are actually pretty normal reasons, pretty general explanations that you would have used in any other essay. And it's something that is logically plausible in current times. So for example, even though this idea of changing the government policies to award compulsory technological devices sounds really outlandish, okay, the reasons, it's for convenience. It's, to support citizens. And it's for the improvement of communications for a truly borderless world. Now these are reasons that you would see in any implementation of any new technological development anyway, right? If I want to make this argument, this support even stronger, I can just bring in more real-life evidence. What actually is happening so far, okay, that proves these explanations, and then I link it to how, you know, this suggestion would be possible to implement. So for example, okay, this is my explanation for convenience and, you know, to support citizens. I could link the current program. There's a current social program in Malaysia where students or families in low income groups are given laptops or given computers, okay, in accordance with to support them with the BYOD program, Bring Your Own Device program in schools. Right, so low income groups of students were given this sort of laptop. So by me bringing in an actual example, okay, I juxtapose it against my argument. So then that's where, you know, the linking part comes in, the L part of the peel comes in, because I just have to link, this is what's happening currently, and it is actually happening. These are actual programs, okay, low income group people getting their own devices as, you know, educational support. So then this means, okay, this awarding of technological devices is also logically plausible. Alright, so you just have to have that linking, that additional sentence of 2 to link that example to supporting your main idea. And that's what makes, you know, the overall paragraph sound more logical, right? And then, you know, the same thing with this, with technology, and, you know, the same thing with families as well. Okay, if you're talking about banning divorces and, you know, nurturing responsibility in marriages and all that, look at current programs in, say, America, where there's a lot of family planning programs. Okay, in Malaysia even, we have a lot of family planning programs as well. And why can't some of these family planning programs, okay, be implemented in a stronger way to the point where divorces don't need to happen, right? Because that will get people to consider and to think more about their decisions before going to marriage. Okay, so something like that. All right, so that's my train of thought once again. And if you see, just from this few ideas, I'm able to come out, and I'm actually starting to ramble, or I'm able to come up with all these ideas already. So as I'm writing, okay, I'll probably just narrow down. Okay, that means there's no lack of ideas. I'm just going to narrow down, but I won't be stopping to think at different points of the essay. Okay, because that's what you really want to achieve when it comes to the process of writing. Alright, so I hope this shows to you how important your outlining part is, but also keep in mind you cannot spend more than 8 minutes on the outline. Alright, you need to keep time. Please do keep time with your watch. And once, you know, you see you have gone past the first 8 minutes, you should be starting on your introduction. You shouldn't be spending 8 minutes just looking at a blank piece of paper or no. Okay. If you don't know where to start in terms of practicing, then this should be the first thing. Think of your own categories. Alright. After coming up with a list of your own distinct categories, challenge those categories by looking at whatever essay questions that we have had, okay, on OneNote, and try to apply those categories. Are these categories applicable to those essay questions, to any of those essay questions? And then from there, come up with the main ideas, okay? Alright, so that wraps up the first part in terms of how do you get your writing going and overcoming writer's block. Now, samples. I got the sample from one of the students, two of them actually, okay, because you guys worked in pairs. Thank you. Now, I really liked how they had written their introduction and body paragraph, because this is a good example of how fluid, and, you know, whenever we talk about smooth flow between paragraphs and all that, this example shows, right? So it's not exactly as per their example. I modified certain parts of it, but the ideas that were in there, okay, the initial ideas and all, that was by these two students. So thank you. Alright, so please read through and look at make sure you know which is the introduction and which is the body paragraph. Right? It should be distinctive to you. If not, then you really have to come back to me in terms of, revising your essay structure once again. Okay, but otherwise, think of what we talked about. Okay, that should be in the introduction, and identify how this particular introduction is actually more interesting and adhering to the feature article conventions, okay, compared to any other essay. Of course, this is the other one that you want to focus on as well, okay, the body paragraphs, as one of the common problems that I see students are still struggling with is in relation to maintaining the voice in the introduction. So some of you've gotten your introduction down really nicely. Okay, it sounds like a feature article. It has all the persuasive techniques and whatnot being used in the introduction. But in the body paragraph, suddenly the tone and the voice goes back to a normal essay. Alright, so here, this example is to show you how the body paragraph's voice can still be maintained, okay, from the introduction. Try to identify, okay, as you're reading at this, try to identify the appeal of this body paragraph, okay, even though at first glance, it doesn't look like peel is being used, but let me assure you, it is being used, okay? And identify. So after you've looked out at peel, look at how persuasive techniques were used in here. Okay, there's quite a bit of, in terms of the use of persuasive techniques, identify where and how. Also, look at the content. Okay, in this case, for this piece, they structured it as, I hope you picked this out already. Okay, they structured it as the change, giving the reasons why, followed by solution. So how to realistically implement it. And that makes up one body paragraph. So I thought that was good. Okay, this is an example of how do you structure your body paragraphs. Now, this is not the only way to structure, mind you. Okay, there are so many different ways. So you just have to practice and make sure you try out, okay, the different ways. If you can't try out in terms of writing the full paragraph itself, then do the outlining. Alright, outlining, just practicing on outlining will work for last minute notes or practices that you want to do. Alright? Okay, of course, last minute practices, individual last minute practices. If let's say we don't have time to see me, it's already almost okay to the assessment. Alright. So that is all. If you need to, pause and look at this longer, then please do. Okay, otherwise this is all for the video. Thank you.